I froze in my study when I saw the username. It wasn't one she ever used in our home, something cryptic, 2 initials and a number. The timestamp, at 2:11 a.m. yesterday. How many nights have I sat here, thinking I knew every corner of her life? How many times did I watch the streetlights through that window and assume peace? Then something tiny changed everything. Flashback, when we were US. We'd been married 38 years. I remember when she wore that spring dress we met in, how she smelled of lilacs. Those early years, at junior college, weekend picnics, peeling paint on our first fixer-upper. We had fights, yes. But I believed we resolved them. I believed she loved me. And honestly, I believed she was content. She'd retired 3 years ago from her job at the care center. I'd scaled back my consulting work. Quiet rhythm, gentle routines. We didn't travel much. Our notion of vacation was sitting on the porch, a pitcher of lemonade, watching the sunset. But somewhere along the way, I began missing little things. Her laughter, a trace. Her phone, more guarded. She'd say she was tired, busy with volunteer plans, or late meetings for the community group. I never pressed hard. She had access to all my devices. Our finances were transparent. I thought she had nothing to hide. Little cracks I swallowed, it disappearing for an hour, deleting browser history, excuses about just browsing or checking group forums. I accepted her silence as introspection. A quiet night, a different routine. The other night, I got up to pour water. The hall was dark, just the hum of the air filter. I nudged the door open to her computer room, empty. Her screen was locked. I had the master password, she had never questioned it. Something in me stirred, open. I saw a folder with encryption. A quick search of recent logins. That odd username. I typed it into a browser. It brought me to a private forum she'd posted on, under that pseudonym. Posts about resentment, passion, escape. Descriptions of another man, his strength, how life was dull with me. I shut it down before she'd notice. But I couldn't unsee it. Why hide if nothing is there? Curiosity loop, what happened before this? Before the discovery, I saw a late-night delivery badge on our account, a hotel stay charge under her name, she said conference, a strange email she claimed was spam. All minor things I chalked up to memory lapses, age, stress. A few weeks ago, she said she was feeling invisible at home. She said she'd been lonely. I offered company. She thanked me. But I felt distance. Now I'm left wondering, how long did she live this double life? In the next part, I'll tell you what my son did, and how the threads unraveled quickly. Dad, I need to show you something. It was a Tuesday morning. I was out trimming the hedge when Ethan pulled into the driveway, earlier than usual. My son rarely dropped by unannounced, even less so without his wife or kids. His face looked tight, like he hadn't slept. I wiped my hands and asked if everything was all right. He didn't answer right away. Just stepped inside and said, "We need to talk." We sat at the kitchen table. Same one we'd had since he was 10, all those dinners, report cards, birthday candles. Now the table felt like a witness to something heavier. He pulled out his phone and tapped a few times. "I didn't know if I should bring this up," he said. "But, you deserve to know. A son's accidental discovery." Turns out Ethan had stumbled across a user profile on a niche forum while researching something unrelated, a local nonprofit issue, apparently. The username had caught his eye. It resembled a handle his mom used for years on family emails, just scrambled slightly. The posts weren't public, but some replies were. The phrasing. The tone. Even photos, nothing explicit, but enough to confirm the truth. A favorite mug. A cardigan. A close-up of her reading chair. And then there was him. A man named Derek. She spoke about D with longing. About how the house felt like a cage, how G didn't see her anymore. There were mentions of meetings. Overnight conferences in nearby cities. Passion. Connection. A shared secret. I sat there in silence. My heart wasn't racing. It was slowing down, like it was folding in on itself. How long? I asked. Ethan swallowed. The oldest post I could trace goes back about 11 years. The longer the history, the deeper the cut. 11 years. That was when we renovated the kitchen. That was when my mother passed, and she held my hand during the funeral. That was when she brought me soup during a week-long flu and joked about our retirement bucket list. All those memories, now smeared. Ethan didn't say much else. He left me a flash drive with some of the saved pages, in case I needed proof. I didn't look at it. Not then. He hugged me on the way out. A long, silent kind of hug. No advice. Just pain. Pattern interrupt. That evening, Marla came home like always. She had a tote full of brochures from the community center. She smiled and asked if I wanted fish or pasta. I watched her move. Measured. Casual. She poured wine like nothing was different. But everything was different now. Curiosity loop, what was in the forum posts? The next morning, before she woke up, I opened the flash drive. The content was organized in folders. Ethan was always meticulous. There were over 200 entries. Forum posts. Private messages. Images. She called Derek her mirror. Said he saw her as she used to be, before the numbness. She wrote about the thrill of sneaking away, about how the hotel coffee always tasted sweeter with him. In one message, she said, I could never leave G. But with you, I feel alive. That one hit like a gut punch. My internal war, what do I say? Do I explode now? Do I gather more? I've always prided myself on being calm under fire. Decades of work taught me restraint. But this? This was personal. Deeper than any business deal gone south. I needed to know the full picture before making my move. So I played normal. For a few days. I watched her phone habits, noted her absence when she said she was at a planning session. She didn't notice a thing. And I began planning. Ending beat, a clock is ticking. One night, while she was out volunteering late, I installed a keystroke logger on her home laptop. Legal? Maybe not. But after 38 years of loyalty, I figured I had earned the right to know what was going on in my own house. And what I found confirmed everything, and more than I was ready for. Because Derek wasn't just some forum fling. He had met her in person. Many times. And the places they stayed? I had paid for them. I thought I knew the worst. I didn't. That line ran through my head the night I opened the hidden folder. Inside were booking confirmations. Emails. Calendar entries she'd thought she'd deleted. And there it was, receipts from roadside motels, gas stations 2 towns over, late-night ride payments. Dates matched the times she claimed she was volunteering late. I'd been paying for their little world without even knowing it. She'd used our joint card. The one I set up years ago so she'd never have to worry about expenses. That thought, the kindness I thought was love, turned sour in my gut. The moment the lies became solid. One entry stopped me cold. A message dated 4 summers ago. I can't believe he still doesn't know. It's like living in a movie. She typed that. About me. I scrolled down. You make me feel awake again. When he talks, it's just noise now. I'll tell him eventually. Maybe. eventually never came. She kept sleeping in our bed, folding my shirts, calling me love as if nothing had changed. And maybe that was the most brutal part, the normalcy. Curiosity loop, how long had she been planning this? I spent hours combing through the logs. It wasn't some impulsive flirtation. This had structure. Pattern. Routine. Thursday night meetups. Second Saturday of the month getaways. Every anniversary after year 27, there was a trip with Derek hidden under some community project. My jaw clenched so hard it ached. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, watching the cursor blink. Pattern interrupt. Then something small happened. An email pinged. It was her, she'd forwarded herself a packing list. I opened it. Weekend essentials, it said. 2 days from now. That was my opening. I set the hook. The next day, I told her I'd be out of town for work, a consulting gig up north. I hadn't done that kind of trip in 2 years, so she didn't suspect anything. She even kissed me goodbye that morning. It was light. Habitual. Devoid of any real warmth. When she left the house that afternoon, I waited 10 minutes, grabbed my truck, and tailed her. I kept enough distance not to spook her. She drove past the library, past the community center. Turned onto the highway. No charity event in sight. I followed her for almost an hour. Then she pulled into a roadside motel with peeling red paint. The kind of place people don't ask questions. The moment I saw him, he was waiting. Derek. Gray hair slicked back, denim jacket. Looked like the kind of man who always wanted to be the center of attention. She stepped out of the car. She had a different outfit under her jacket, one I'd never seen. Not the mala who folded laundry and drank decaf with me at 9 p.m. She laughed when he touched her cheek. She leaned into him. They walked in together like it was their tradition. I stayed in the truck. Engine off. Fingers digging into the steering wheel. I could have walked in. I could have kicked the door. But no, that wasn't the kind of man I wanted to become. Not today. I pulled out my phone. Took photos. Timestamped. Everything clean. Documented. The drive back. I didn't follow them inside. I didn't need to. On the way home, I felt strangely calm. Like some fog had lifted. For years I'd felt this quiet dissonance, something in our rhythm that never quite matched. Now I knew why. And knowing, truly knowing, made everything sharper. Curiosity loop, what comes after evidence? I spent the next 48 hours putting everything in place. Copies of all receipts and logs. Screenshots of forum posts. Photos from the motel. A printout of hotel reservations from our joint card. I called a lawyer. Not to rage. To build. Because the next conversation with Marla wasn't going to be a fight. It was going to be a reckoning. Mini cliffhanger, the table is set. She came home Sunday night like nothing happened. She hung up her tote, poured herself tea, and asked how my trip went. I looked her in the eyes and said, quietly, Marla, sit down. We need to talk. She froze mid-step. A tremor crossed her face. She knew. But she didn't know how much I knew. Tell me everything. Right now. She didn't move at first. Just stared at me like she was calculating the safest lie. I repeated it. Slower. Sit. Down. She did. Folded her hands like she used to in church. I slid the folder across the table. Photos on top. Hotel timestamp. Then the printouts. forum posts. Her messages. Her words, in her own phrasing. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing manipulated. She barely glanced before whispering, "Where did you get all this?" I didn't answer. She tried again. "It's not what you think." That sentence? That was the match on gasoline. The confrontation begins. "Not what I think?" I said, calmly. "Is it not you in these photos?" She paused. "I was lonely, Gavin. You were always distracted, always busy." That's when I felt it, the shift. She wasn't going to deny it. She was going to justify it. Curiosity loop, would she tell the full truth? I pushed the folder aside and stared at her. "You've been seeing him for how long, Marla?" Her voice cracked. "A few years." I leaned forward. 11. I have proof. 11 years. She blinked, lips parted slightly. And then I saw it, shame, quickly buried under defiance. "Okay," she said. "It started slow. We just talked at first. He listened to me." I nodded slowly. "So that's all it takes to betray your husband? A good listener?" I was miserable, Gavin. You stopped seeing me. You stopped touching me. You. Stop. I raised my hand. You don't get to pin this on my back. You don't get to rewrite our history so you can sleep at night. She didn't respond. Pattern interrupt, the blame game. You think I was absent? I asked. I was working double hours to pay off our mortgage early. I was at every community fundraiser you dragged me to. I gave you access to every dime I earned. I showed up, Marla. You just stopped appreciating it. She looked down. Her hands twisted in her lap. I never planned to leave you, she whispered. It was just an escape. I slammed the folder shut. You didn't have to leave. You were already gone. The tone shifts, from pain to power. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just told her, point blank. You made 1,000 choices that led here. You drove to that motel. You sent those messages. You used our money. I didn't use. I held up the receipts. Her voice dropped. I didn't mean to hurt you. I stood. You didn't care if you did. Moral dilemma, forgiveness versus self-respect. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. I don't hate you, I said. But I don't trust you. And I don't think I want to live with someone I have to investigate. Tears welled up. Please don't leave. We can fix this. We. There's no we in betrayal, Marla. She begged. She blamed. She wept. I stayed silent. Curious beat, did he ever mean more than me? I asked one last question. If I hadn't found out, would you still be doing this next year? Next month? Her silence answered for her. Mini cliffhanger, the beginning of the end. That night, I didn't sleep in our room. I packed a bag and went to Ethan's for the weekend. Marla kept texting me, please come back. We can talk more. You're overreacting. But it wasn't overreaction. It was revelation. And I was done being lied to. What she ruined, it wasn't just a marriage. When I walked into Ethan's house that weekend, I expected a couch, maybe a spare blanket, and silence. Instead, he met me at the door, hugged me like a soldier returning from war, and said, I'm sorry, Dad. I really am. His wife, Jenna, had already set up the guest room. She left a note on the pillow, you are not alone. For the first time in days, I allowed myself to sit down and exhale. But what came next would test more than just my heart. It would challenge the fabric of everything we'd built: family, community, finances. Curiosity loop: how would our son respond to her? The next day, Ethan confronted his mother. I didn't ask him to. He did it on his own. He told me later, as she cried. Said she didn't know how it got so far. Said she missed being admired. He asked her if she ever thought about how this would affect him, his view of love, of marriage, of her. She didn't answer. That silence cost her more than she knew. Pattern interrupt: her image wasn't bulletproof. Marla had always been the sweetheart of Riverbend. Potlucks. Book clubs. Fundraisers. But word gets around in small towns. A week after the confrontation, Jenna mentioned that Marla had stopped showing up to volunteer shifts. A few people noticed she withdrew from group chats. One neighbor told me someone spotted her crying in her car outside the rec center. I didn't take joy in that. But I didn't feel sorry, either. Financial fallout: the cost of secrets. Back at the house, I started reviewing our finances. Dozens of unexplained expenses. Trips. Gift cards. Subscription services. All things I'd assumed were household or volunteer-related. Turns out Derek wasn't just a secret. He was an investment. Thousands of dollars over the years, chipped away from our joint savings. The betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was economic. I called the bank and froze our shared accounts. I opened a new one in my name only. I changed the house title. Contacted our financial planner. Set up a meeting with a divorce attorney. I wasn't going to be her fool twice. Curiosity loop: would she fight or fade? When I returned to the house a few days later to collect more of my things, she was there. She looked small. Fragile. Like someone who finally realized the gravity of what she'd done. She said, "You really doing this?" I said, "You made that decision 11 years ago." She tried one last time. "I never stopped loving you." I nodded. "Maybe that's true. But you stopped respecting me. And without that, love doesn't mean much." Social reputation: her world shrank fast. Over the next few weeks, things shifted. The community board quietly removed her name from their monthly newsletter. Jenna declined to invite her to the family's fall brunch. Ethan told her, gently but firmly, that trust would take years to rebuild, if ever. People didn't shun her publicly. But the warmth drained from her world. And for someone who'd built her identity around being beloved, that loss cut deep. I never encouraged anyone to take sides. But people did anyway. Because when you shatter a legacy of loyalty, the cracks echo far beyond the bedroom. Mini cliffhanger: the last choice she made. One morning, a letter arrived at Ethan's house. From Marla. It wasn't an apology. It was a request. Before we finalize anything, she wrote. Can we sit down one more time, just us, and talk about what went wrong? I stared at the page for a long time. Not because I didn't know the answer. But because I had to decide. Did I owe her that conversation? I didn't go to punish her. I went to close the door. I agreed to meet Marla. Not out of hope. Not out of guilt. But because I wanted to leave nothing unsaid, to make sure that when I walked away, it was with my spine straight and my heart clear. We met at a quiet park halfway between our homes. It used to be our picnic spot when Ethan was a kid. Funny how betrayal always circles back to places that used to hold joy. She was already there, sitting on a bench beneath the elm tree. Her face was pale, her eyes rimmed red. Final conversation, no tears left to shed. She stood when she saw me, then sat again, unsure of what to do with herself. I didn't offer a hug. She began quietly. "Thank you for coming." I said nothing. She looked down. "I know you don't believe anything I say. But I swear, Gavin, I never wanted to destroy us." I finally spoke. "You didn't destroy us in a day, Marla. You chipped away at us, year after year. Lie after lie. Until there was nothing left but dust." She wiped her eyes. I was scared. Scared of aging. Of becoming invisible. Derek made me feel wanted again. "I made you feel safe," I said. "That wasn't enough?" She didn't answer. Curiosity loop, would she accept the consequences? She asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her the truth. "I don't hate you. I don't wish you harm. But I won't forget this. And I won't rebuild a house on top of ashes." She nodded. Slowly. I miss the version of us that was happy." I nodded too. "So do I. But that version died quietly. You just buried it in secret." We sat in silence for a long time. The breeze moved through the leaves like whispers of what once was. Then I stood. And so did she. The final move, respecting myself. I handed her a copy of the legal paperwork. Division of assets. Mediation date. Separation of accounts. She didn't fight it. She didn't plead. She just looked at me and said, "I'm sorry I lost you." I looked her straight in the eye. "No. You threw me away." Then I turned and walked back to my truck. What I learned. In the weeks that followed, I moved into a small house near the lake. Quiet, clean, mine. I started fishing again. Reconnected with some old friends. Even went to a few coffee meetups, not looking for anything. Just trying to feel human again. I kept the wedding photos packed away. Not out of anger. But because they belong to a life that's no longer mine. I learned that forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. You can forgive someone, and still choose never to let them close again. I learned that loyalty is not a blindfold, it's a mirror. And once that mirror breaks, every reflection after is cracked. And most of all, I learned that being alone isn't the worst thing. Being lied to in your own home, that's the loneliest place in the world.